It's so good that so many of you are here. I hope you had a great coffee break. Our next session is a panel discussion which is looking at strategic leadership in the AI era. And that is obviously a perennially popular topic. And here to moderate that session is Matthew Blakemore, who is the CEO of AI Caramba. So give Matthew a warm round of applause, and his speakers too as they come to the stage.
Fantastic. How are you all doing today? Good? Okay, let's try that again. How are you all doing today? Good. I hope you've been enjoying all of the amazing stuff that's been going on all the different stages. We have a really awesome group of panelists here who are going to be talking about strategic leadership in the AI era. So for many businesses in the room who are already using AI, and for those who are thinking about it, this is the perfect panel for them. And what I'd like to start with is kind of an introduction from each of the panelists to kind of talk to you about who they are, their career journey, and what they're doing today. So we start with you, Kimberly.
Okay. I hope my mic is on. I'm Kamini. I work for Amazon Web Services, and I've been with AWS for almost 14 years, which means that I've seen that first stage of the establishment and the adoption of the cloud, and I'm very, very delighted to be here for everything that's AI. I'm responsible within our worldwide specialist organization, so for all of our domain specialists here across Europe, Middle East, and Africa.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. Great to have you here. Magesh, introduce yourself.
Fantastic to be here. I'm Magesh Bhagwati. I work at PepsiCo. I've been there for the last 5 years. And currently I lead the data analytics and AI team globally for PepsiCo. Prior to PepsiCo, I've been at a variety of other companies like Samsung, General Electric, and AIG. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, and good to have you as well. Edwina.
Hi everybody, great to be with you today. Edwina Fitzmaurice. I work in global innovation, leading the markets work we do with our clients around the world at EY. And that really brings me into contact with everything to do with frontier technologies like AI or quantum computing, robotics, blockchain and so on, as well as data, how we think about data. And previously I was working and leading the product teams at EY, and I also ran customer success at EY and was in our consulting group. But I was also a C-suite executive, so I worked for 12 years in industry, in financial services. So leadership and applying technology to solve business issues is really a passion of mine. So great to be with you. Looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you very much for joining us. And Craig.
Hello everyone again. Craig Slapchev. I was up here an hour ago, so hopefully you enjoyed what Zach and myself talked about. My background is all research and development, meaning product development, meaning non-IT. So hard goods, I worked for Unilever, Procter & Gamble, Campbell, Henkel, and now Kimberly-Clark. And so my passion has been taking the best of the world of IT and bringing it into making better things with innovation in hard goods. And so that journey's been everywhere from hardwiring agile design methodology into physical product development to leveraging artificial intelligence for trend scanning, for predictive analytics, et cetera, et cetera. So excited to be on this panel.
Thank you very much for joining us too. Now, all of these panelists are bringing different perspectives, which is great. And to kick things off, I think when we're thinking about strategic leadership, the best thing we want to do is start with the foundations. And I know that AWS have an approach that they use when it comes to getting the foundations right in businesses that is a really good starting point for this. So, Kamini, can you talk to us about the working backwards approach?
Yes, of course. And I think it really ties back into having a true obsession over the outcomes and successes of customers. So working backwards is as simple as that. It's working backwards from your customer. understanding who the customer is, ensuring that every single product, service, feature that you ship is responding to an actual need that you have in some shape or form, captured, documented, articulated, that your customers have. So the sort of formalized process around this, and we do this through a mechanism that we call the working backwards mechanism, which basically starts with writing a PR FAQ, which is a press release and a set of frequently asked questions that accompany that press release. And all of this happens before a single line of code is written or any investment decisions have been made. So what this basically means is you take a press release is a fairly accessible document. It's something that anyone who's opening a newspaper should be able to read. They should be able to understand what the headline says, and they should be able to interpret why that is important. Why is this announcement being made? What does that product seek to achieve? And then of course there's some quotes and things like that which explain why the organization or the business has embarked on this journey. So you write this whole thing out. It's a very iterative process. It requires a deep understanding of the idea. It requires going and seeking feedback, going straight to the customer or as close to the customer as possible to understand how this new idea might have an impact on them. So that press release gets written out. It's an iterative process, and then that gets presented with a set of frequently asked questions. We also talk about sort of the difficult questions or the more challenging questions to really suss out, to really shake out every last bit of doubt about whether this makes sense or not. And it's only after that is done that the product then or the service or feature gets approved for further execution. Now what this does in the process is it drives extreme clarity of thought. It drives a clear understanding of why that product or why that decision or project will actually have a true impact versus it just being something that's been, devised in a room by a bunch of really intelligent and bright people, no doubt, but without a connection back to the customer. So this working backwards process, which then gets applied across, I would say, every single decision, every single project, is the way innovation gets unleashed in the organization. So it allows a number of these PR FAQs to happen in parallel. You don't need to put a lot of investment into them. You need to get the team together, obviously some bright minds, and you write out a PR FAQ for every single new idea, and some of them will get off the ground and others won't, and you continue to sort of lower the cost of failure as you go along.
Absolutely, and I guess that approach would really reassure a board as well, because when you're writing a press release, you have to think simply, right? And so it kind of will bring along people who potentially would be quite scared of AI at times. It would bring them along the journey and make it more digestible for them.
Absolutely.
Your experience at PepsiCo, I guess, you've been dealing with the kind of fundamentals more on the architecture side of things. I wonder if you could kind of talk to us about the journey you've been on.
So at PepsiCo, when we talk about AI, right, it's not something new. We've been working specifically with components associated with data science, machine learning, what we consider as traditional AI, for almost a decade. So if you think about, we service almost 1.4 billion consumers every day. So that's the size and scale of what we deal with on a daily basis across 200 plus countries. So it's a house of brands. So when we talk about a house of brands, we need to have the science behind the house of brands in terms of how we actually service our consumers, to who's drinking what product, what are they consuming, what event is in and around the corner, and how do you actually provide the services, a variety of services for our consumers globally. So that's kind of what we do from a science perspective. And with the breakthrough of now generative AI, and as we're moving into the world of agentic AI and physical AI, the opportunity in front of all of us, and that's why this room is so full, is humongous, because I think we all have a little flutter in our heart saying, this is kind of almost a pivotal moment for each one of us. That flutters that's in each and every one of your heart is in my heart too. And the reason for that is because it's a cultural revolution, and that's what we're going through within PepsiCo. Because we think this is a business transformation opportunity with the support of a technology like AI. And so we've got top board level support, CEO level support, C-suite level support, and everybody in the company is bought in on this transformation journey. But at the same time, we all clearly know that it cannot just be tops down, it's got to be grassroots effort as well. So we're thinking about grassroots in two ways. One, AI for everybody, which is we have 320,000 employees, and all 320,000 employees, we just launched we call this Pet GPT. We expect almost all 320,000 employees to really be the knowledge economy for PepsiCo. So we think of AI for everybody. But at the same time, AI transforming the company, that's the second component. And so we focused on 27 major priorities. We used to have thousands of priorities. We've narrowed it down to 27 priorities, and that's what we're going after. And we're also finding what's the sweet spot in where we can have a massive impact. So big is better, and we think that's how this technology is going to have a direct impact on us. I'll come back to the other technology topics later on.
So do you think that, for businesses who are at a far earlier stage, doing a prioritization matrix or something like that, to really focus on the key areas would help to kind of get them to focus more on the key fundamentals like you have in Pepsi?
Absolutely. This is a business transformation, right? It's supported by technology. It's supported by great technology. Yes. So you've got to put the necessary building blocks in place across making sure you've got big bets, and there's the transformation team that is finance, HR, supply chain, go-to-market. All of them are absolutely embedded in it, and you're, by the way, supporting it. You also have to have a persona-centric approach as you go through this. So every persona matters, because this journey is not just about doing AI at scale, but it's doing AI for every individual. So if you're a key account manager servicing, let's say the Walmart account, this AI is for you. So you've got to make it individualistic, at the same time being able to drive scale across the company. So that's kind of how we're thinking about the architectural construct as well, in terms of how AI is for everyone.
And at EY, you have exposure to so many different types of businesses, with completely different business models, and I'm sure you have experienced so many different strategic approaches. How does EY, when it goes into different businesses, really help them to structure their strategic leadership correctly?
So yeah, I mean, EY is 400,000 people, 150 countries, a regulated business itself, working in regulated businesses and every kind of industry. So what's interesting to me is sort of like you, Magesh, like EY is also on a journey, 10 years at least working with AI. We spent $1 billion on it. So we have a lot of experience with it. What's interesting is our own journey is very similar. We're a professional services business. It's a knowledge business. It's very similar to the journey our clients are on. And so you see, what we've done with ourselves, we've built out our infrastructure, obviously moving everything to the cloud over many years, building out a data layer, and really looking at that now in terms of getting your data AI ready, really important, and adding things in like synthetic data to grow that. Building out the intelligence layer and picking out the technologies that you want to build with and the partnerships that you want. And now increasingly we're seeing experience coming in as important, that kind of an experience layer, physical AI, you talked about that, Magesh. So I think our clients are on a very similar journey, and we often tell our story. I think we process about 50% of the Fortune 100's data. So data security is really important. In a regulated business like banking or pharma, that's critical. Data exfiltration is huge, and making sure that you hang on to your data. And then in other industries, say something like media and entertainment, obviously there's an explosion of content creation coming from all sorts of places, which is very interesting and good and very creative. But that creates real IP issues in that industry. So depending on the industry, there's sort of nuances that are more important. Entertainment industry experience is huge, and you think about multimodal AI. Everybody's talking about agentic AI, but what comes next when you think about multimodal and all of that? So I think that's a lot of what's going on. Very similar journey, but also with nuances. I would say generally we've seen people, jumping on the experimentation, piloting, fear of missing out, wanting to be trying things out. In the last 6 to 9 months, there's been a big shift to value. And people are saying they're looking for those use cases. So where is the use case that we're going to be able to demonstrate value to the board, to the executive? And that's wonderful, and there's a lot of that out there, loads of low-hanging fruit there. But I would say as well, just doing use case approach gives you a sort of AI across how you're already working, and I've heard it a lot here at this conference. Taking a step back and looking at inputs and outputs, and what are you actually trying to achieve, and taking a really radical step back, I think matters if you're going to get to transformation. So we actually have some AI that we use to help us do that. And I can tell you, for those of you who do process transformation, you see your process maps, when the AI gets involved in helping you reimagine, they collapse. They just fall apart, fall away, and everything just looks so much simpler. Spaghetti diagrams get simple, time collapses, space collapses, like creating a machine. And there's such an aha moment in that for people. So I think that's the stage we're at right now, which is really exciting.
But for optimal strategic leadership when it comes to AI, we need to use AI to support that as well.
You have to use AI. I mean, you gotta make friends with this technology. It is so powerful. And working without it, I think, is a real mess, yeah.
Absolutely, and I guess, at Kimberly-Clark, you've had some really interesting experiences moving from very traditional to a heavily digitized business. I mean, what's been behind the transformation there? How have you driven that change?
So it starts at the high level with we have a mantra which we call innovate on how we innovate. And so quite simply that is looking at the process of innovation, and you break it down into 3 pieces. It's very simple. It's speed to insight. How quickly are you able to take the data streams that lead you to an insight that you're going to design against? The second leg is speed to design. How quickly do you take that insight and then build a working prototype that you can then validate and create and get that down the pipeline? And then speed to commercialization. How quickly can you get it through your supply chain so that it ends up on shelf or ends up on any number of e-commerce platforms to ultimately land with the consumer? So as my leadership team sits and thinks about our process of innovation, we are constantly thinking about how do we innovate and how we innovate. And from that exercise, we come up with use cases on what we want AI to do for us. And it is, as I mentioned in my talk earlier, around speed. Speed is the currency of the realm now. And so the faster we go on innovation, the faster the more likely we're going to be able to get dominant market positions, the more likely we're going to be able to have iterations of design, because I'm not chasing towards a launch date. I actually have more time to iterate on design. And ultimately, it is around data. So even though, let's say, for example, this is a wonderful sparkling can of beverage. So this is my product. Ultimately, this gets translated directly into digitization and into data. So the more I can manipulate and handle that data in a frictionless way, the faster we're going to innovate within the company. And that's been really our process at Kimberly-Clark.
I did not realize that we were going to be able to involve a canned drink in this discussion, but thank you very much. That was a very useful demonstration there. And I guess moving on from these quite detailed, complex, strategic leadership advice, I want to get down to one sentence, okay? So I'm sure the audience are very keen to hear this as well, but from all of your perspectives, I'm going to ask you for one sentence on what AI first means. Let's start with you, Kimberly. I'm sorry, you are the first in the firing line here, so I apologize. But what does AI first mean to you?
AI first or AI unless? I mean, there's a wealth of opportunity and the possibility of, or the likelihood of leaving that opportunity aside is something that we should not or cannot afford to slow us down. So, you put me on the spot a little bit there.
I am putting you on the spot. I am sorry.
For a business that does AI in pretty much every aspect of our
to be
our
fair,
psyche and our DNA,
yeah.
It feels like the most obvious question. But I will say that it's AI first is understanding every aspect and every part of the consequences, repercussions, being really diligent and purposeful about the choices that we make. Making sure that you create a space for innovation and ensuring that you define those boundaries early on so that you can create this, Rahul, who was speaking here on this stage a few hours ago, said discipline equals freedom. So by applying that discipline early on, you create this space for freedom. And in the world of AI, there is no opportunity that we can afford to miss. And there is a lot of wealth of work that's happening from likes of everyone here, both into the consumer space as well as to support other businesses in ensuring that we have this rounded view, whether it's from an ethical or regulatory standpoint, whether it's from a human leadership standpoint, and ultimately when we understand what's at stake, what are the unlocks that are possible.
That was a long sentence, but a good one. So thank you. Rakesh, do you have another one sentence for us?
I'm going to keep it short because you asked me to keep it short, and thank you, Kamini, for going first. I would really capture it from an essence perspective as going from basics to connected brilliance. One sentence, maybe one catchy phrase, but I'll tell you what connected brilliance is really about the impact not just to an individual, to your family, to your community, to an enterprise like us, and to the society as a whole. So I think it's that connected brilliance. So if you really just take even within PepsiCo, we traditionally would have thought about a company like PepsiCo as, okay, I've got go-to-market, commercialization, consumers, supply chain, sustainability, finance, HR. All of a sudden you start seeing this knowledge economy, this semantic capability that's starting to connect things that we would struggle to connect, even using traditional ERPs or PLM systems, who would just be struggling to connect. But at the same time, every persona was also organized. Except I'm a procurement analyst, I am someone in supply chain and warehouse operator. I think those barriers that we used to have, or those artificial barriers, all of a sudden becomes that much more exponentially reduced. Thereby, the knowledge economy prevails, and your ability to start moving seamlessly from one road to another, I believe, really starts becoming exponential. That's why I call it connected brilliance.
Connected brilliance. I like that. I like that. I might start using that to describe other things as well. Maybe my networking or something. But no, that's very, very good. Thank you, Rakesh. And so, how about Equal's perspective on this?
Well, I'll give you my perspective, because you just dropped this question on me. So for me, as I was listening to both of you, I thought AI first is certainly not a technology. It's a mindset, it's a method, and I think it's a bit of magic, actually. Because when you cross the barrier between and stop thinking about AI as a tool, or something that's augmenting what I've been doing in the past, and allow it to and work with it in a way to show the art of the possible, you kind of cross a line. And when you're on the other side, it's very hard to go back, because everything starts with intelligence and empowerment and creativity and curiosity in a way that wasn't there before, even a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And so you're unlocked. And so the person you see on stage right now is actually surrounded by agents. You might not know that, you can't see them. But every day I build an agent to help me with my day-to-day work. And I have teams of them working for me all the time now. So it's a very different way of thinking. It's very creative. And I think it opens massive opportunities for everybody.
Thank you very much. And Craig, you have the final sentence of the panel on this.
Full disclosure, I thought this was a beer when I grabbed it out of it. It's really suspiciously like the Asahi beer in Japan, but it's not, it's water. Anyway, so my single sentence is, AI is, the way that this is encapsulates how I think about it, is augmented intelligence that opens the aperture. And let me unpack that for you. So augmented is obviously what it means. It's that it's a tool, it's a prosthetic that you can use to help do your job. And it's never going to really replace most parts of the job, especially in the creative realm, whether it be R&D or marketing or creative design. And open the aperture is something that I've seen it do really, really well, specifically analytical AI, and specifically around trend signals. So looking at a wide swath of perturbations or changes in consumer behavior, market behavior, even socioeconomic behavior, to then clue us into there might be an influence on what I want to build for my innovation. And I'm talking physical product here. And so this is something that in the past, when I've seen folks do trend work, they've been very myopic, and they've looked at a very narrow gauge of either, take for example, in the food industry, they would look only at, say, restaurant menus, and that would be their source of inspiration. And at Campbell's, we built an insights engine that prior to becoming a Kimberly-Clark, we built an insight engine that scanned a wide range. It was almost 300 billion data points a year that then created different avenues of innovation. And the reason I call it opening the aperture is it requires the developer, the creative designer, to consider more avenues of innovation than they normally would have. So it actually creates a little bit of extra work in that regard, because you've got to put context against those different avenues and then decide which one's going to be more prolific and more beneficial for the company or the brand to go after. But it's a much richer landscape of opportunity, and that's why I call it open the aperture. So,
thank you very much. So there you have it, 4 very different ideas of AI first, but I think if we join them all together, we have connection, we have aperture, we have unlocking potential, so many really great ideas that emphasize the importance for companies to really look at artificial intelligence as a step forward. It does concern me you've got AI agents operating on us, but hopefully they haven't found anything too bad. And so, moving on to human impact. So, the time is moving on. So, I just wanted to kind of look at how the human impact of AI has kind of affected your business, but also your clients as well. So, for those of us who are client-facing on the panel, think about the businesses that you've worked with as well, and how you've dealt with some of the challenges in those reports.
Yeah, so I think Edwina spoke about how the last couple of years, definitely all of 2024 was a time when customers were across the board experimenting. New proofs of concept, a chatbot here, something else there. And a lot of that was time that was spent, cycles that were invested. And there was some frustration that set in as well, because hey, we did all of this work and now we need something to come out of it, and we need that thing to be durable. And so we need to be able to demonstrate the value and explain that to the board and secure our financing for the time to come. And I think that along the way, a lot of the improvement or the amelioration of the engagement with our customers has also been around this prioritization piece that was picked up very early on. Understanding where the value can be generated and making sure that you're laser focused to try and create as many versions of exploring that value chain so that you can then get some answers out of it. I think one of the things that, and then we talk about intended and unintended consequences as well. We have great examples of customers who set out to, create cost savings and actually improved customer service as a result of it, and then were able to track to a better brand recognition or NPR or things like that. But their starting point was something quite different. So understanding that entire spectrum of impact is also really important. The bit that you started with around the human center of it, taking people along the way, along the journey is so essential. And that's within our own organization. This is something that I work on very diligently every day. I have actually colleagues here who are responsible for driving our own internal enablement efforts, right?
Yeah.
Because we see that as absolutely essential. It just has, there's no room for us to forget that there is a role that we play in augmenting our own abilities. But doing this proactively for our customers is also something that's very, very top of mind. Because you see within organizations that this innovation remains within a small pocket or within a certain team, and it doesn't extend across. So making sure that we continue to have that conversation and help them with defining those boundaries, creating those spaces where more people can be taken along the journey, and defining it through this human leadership connotation of mentorship and the connection that only sort of apprenticeship that can happen where sort of humans are talking to humans.
I guess I saw you nodding along there. Does that echo your experience?
That was nodding. I truly appreciate Amazon's thought process and AWS's thought process, right? Customer obsession. So thank you for being customer obsessed. We are one of your customers too, so we love that you're obsessed about us. And we have similar obsession as well about our customers and our consumers, all of you. And Craig, I wish there was a Pepsi can. You were talking about being a beer can, but I just wish there was a Pepsi can. So for us, it's really about customer obsession. And we are in the food and the beverages business. So we're in the business of sips and smiles. So how can every can that reaches you, or every Lay's chips, or food Gatorade, or Cheetos that reaches your table actually give you a smile? And that's our obsession. So we obsess about it 1.4 billion times a day, internal within PepsiCo. So how can AI really be that capability that can actually help us understand our consumers really well? And in the process, the customers, the bodega store that's serving consumers in a locality in Mexico City. Or if you're going to Carrefour, how's your experience when you actually go to a retail outlet and you buy? And are your favorite products stocked? So that way you actually have the full capability of PepsiCo operating so that we understand you, consumers, and we create that pool. So the consumer pool creates the customer capability, the customer pool creates the PepsiCo pool. So we almost think about it, old word, but I think it's very applicable now, just in time. So that just in time really helps us serve the market, and in that process, we believe communities and societies as well.
And at EY as well, you've had similar experiences, right, with your own team as well as working with businesses. So I wondered if you could talk a little.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's talking about obsession, so I have to start with that. I mean, at EY, we are obsessed, of course, about our clients too, from the lens of building a better working world, right? So when clients come to us, they want to, around this topic, they want to have access to great technology. But a lot of the time they're asking us about impact, and impact in society, impact in their businesses, in their workforce. So we had asked a lot about particularly workforce transformation and what that would look like in terms of the impact on people. And we talk a lot, and everybody here is talking about humans in the loop, and with the agentic workforce coming in, you're building hybrid teams, and there's a lot of talk of human beings acting as orchestrators, checkers, QA checkers, while the AI does the work, and that'll certainly happen. But one of the things we're very interested in is that the extent of the human activity in the workforce, is that it? So we think about a lot about the kind of teams that we build to help us build the kind of worlds we want. So, for example, we started working with artists and musicians, pairing them with our technology teams and our domain specialists in finance and tax and everything else. Because we want to get to what is the essence of humanity. And we think artists and musicians have a very unique point of view around that, and we're getting some phenomenal insights out of that. We've also we've quite a large neurodiverse community who work at EY and across our clients. We run an exercise with about 300 neurodiverse people around the world, asking them for their feedback about AI and how that's working. And we get very good insights from that too, because they're taking agency. So we talk about agents, AI agents, but that group feel they have agency in how they control AI, how they control their day. They feel they've more, they can speed things up or slow things down. They're having better experiences, and that's a very good thing to lean into. These days, Gen Z would say, a lot more of that group would identify as neurodiverse. So this is a very important kind of insight. I think as we're building teams and as we're creating AI systems, we need to think of full spectrum diversity from every angle, and maybe build different kind of teams than we've had before to help us build the kind of worlds that we want. So that's how we're thinking about the workforce.
I do find it fascinating that EY has taken that approach, and I think it's brilliant, of bringing in musicians and artists and people with different perspectives to really drive your teams forward and give them new ideas. I think that's fantastic. And how about you, Craig?
Yes, let me get real for a minute here because the products my company works in deal with messy stuff. And I'm talking urine, feces, menses, mucus. disgusting. But they provide a purpose for consumers which is insurmountable and invaluable in terms of bringing hygiene, health, and even dignity to consumers. And when I talk dignity, it's a matter of the individual who maybe just had prostate cancer and now has uncontrollable bladder, and be able to provide a product that, I guess I just got censored, sorry about that. Provide a product that allows them to go out and live their life in a normal way. And it's that purpose-driven design that is in the blood of every KCer that I've met on the period that I've been with the company. And we're leveraging tools like AI to make our products better, more affordable, and design them faster and more efficiently. And it's what we've seen so far towards that goal that has been really, really surprising and delightful to me. So I'll give you an example. I talked earlier on the main stage about our Dora tool. Dora basically took the last 65 years of R&D and innovation output, codified it, digitized it, and then made it indexable and searchable in minutes. It has accelerated our design timelines like you would not believe. And I've seen other knowledge-based storage tools that have been launched in previous roles. This one has a 75% utilization rate, meaning every month 75% of the 1,400 scientists and engineers and designers are in that tool leveraging the past work of Kimberly-Clark's scientists. And so it's all towards the goal of purpose-driven work. I'll give you another example. We just launched in Korea a FemCare pad that has a diagnostic tool built into it to detect UTIs. And so if you think about the digitization of our product category, it went from very boring hygiene products to the fact that every one of those 4 fluids I mentioned have biomarkers that indicate the medical state of an individual. And how do we tap into that? And that's the future that AI is going to be. That's obviously a very heavy data-driven future, and it's a world where the AI is going to really help us get there.
And that's so encouraging. And those use cases you speak about are absolutely incredible. So, and talking of incredible, one lucky audience member is going to have the incredible privilege of asking a question to this panel, okay? We can only take one question, so please make it a good one. Otherwise I'll track you down afterwards. So, or certainly EY's agents will anyway. Yes, okay, we have a gentleman in the front row.
My question is for Magesh. First of all, thank you. This was very insightful. So you mentioned you have 27 priorities, which is basically going vertical into the organization. We heard this morning that that's the right approach. Although there was some hesitancy about going horizontal across the organization. We saw 95% of AI initiatives fail, so you're giving it to 320,000 employees. What's the ROI? And I love that approach personally, but what's the ROI? You're setting things from top down, so obviously there's a lot of buy-in. So how do you think about that?
Yeah, very good question, right? So thank you for the question. And you know, we used to deal with thousands of priorities, as most companies did. And we said, let's rethink our approach. And I'll probably just take a step back before I go forward, if that's okay. First, we said, let's reorganize ourselves. That this is a business transformation, this is not a technology transformation. So if that's the case, then we really need to put the business in the forefront and look at how we're actually going to market, how we're actually driving supply chain efficiency, how we're driving sustainability in every aspect of what we do. And AI is embedded as an intelligence layer on top of all of those capabilities. So that was one. So second, we said, let's narrow down our priorities based on process focuses like what Craig mentioned. So we're integrated business planning. We said that's going to be across the company, not just in divisions. So it's a horizontal capability as well, but that sits on an agentic AI platform, that sits on ERP, that sits on cloud. So it sits on all of the capabilities that we've built and with partners such as yourself and yourself. And so that's also how we're focusing from a priorities perspective. Third, we said, let's make it very persona-centric. That way, typically what ends up happening is the last mile of adoption is always a challenge. Why? Because you try to push it to organizations, but people don't actually take those things because they don't feel it is their own. However, with AI, I think we have a unique opportunity of making it personalized, still simple and standard for the enterprise, with governed data supporting those capabilities. And we think that these 3-4 capabilities coming together can really drive adoption for us. So now across these 27 initiatives, the ROI that we're seeing is very significant because we're driving this in a standardized, scaled, market-focused delivery mechanism. So that's why reorganizing yourself, not just as a technology capability, but a transformation team and also a business team, all coming together to drive this is where we're starting to see this formulation really work.
Thank you very much, Magesh, and thank you, sir, for a very good question. A round of applause for this fantastic panel. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.